So first of all, in Asia Pac, folks are really taking this seriously. So countries such as China, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, they're really on the forefront of this thing. And I think one of the things that they recognized first and foremost before probably some of us in the West was that there's a correlation between broadband and the penetration of broadband and gross domestic product. So now looking at countries like Brazil, which is where I was just a week and a half ago, the government there recognizes the fact that if they're going to keep their economic growth up, which has been for Brazil at about 7.5%, and if they're going to be able to showcase their infrastructure and their upcoming World Cup and Olympics in the next 4 or 5 years, that they're going to need the help from companies such as ourselves and others to go bring this technology to reality in terms of the ability to have broadband connections there in a geography that is much more challenging than we have here in the United States. We're seeing, as I talked about, just lots of different ways to provide broadband, and we see a huge disparity between different continents and their approaches of delivering it in a mobile fashion or some other alternative. The biggest underlying factor is, bottom line, is that the focus is still on getting that connectivity to help develop, businesses such as e-commerce, telemedicine, all the things that I talked about in the keynote. And it's important for us to recognize that we can solve this problem with different flavors. And we're seeing those different flavors. Some have actually put some studies together and looked at which one from a quality point of view works better than the other. And, it's interesting. It still tells you that there's quite a bit of ways to go. I think there's different appreciations for technology. And I don't think in general, broadband is a definition of being, I think everybody agrees to. It's just how you deliver that broadband. Mm-hmm. And again, so many different things taken into consideration. Is there spectrum there? Or is there geographic challenges or landscape challenges? Are there economic challenges? And so forth. So there's different choices that are actually the right choices given the different environments. Yeah, certainly the IT convergence with the network we're seeing happening real time. The kind of complexity of the workforce is something that we're always dealing with, specifically in large and small and medium corporations. And then this influx of all these, what we call millennials, people that want to bring all of these different devices, but they cannot be managed. And so from a CIO point of view, like, how do we deal with this phenomenon? And so one of the things that cloud enables to do is actually for a very seamless way to proliferate all those devices and have it be managed in such a way where, in today's environment, if the CIOs are doing that on a pure client basis, that's just an overwhelming task. And the cloud gives that solution to the CIO community. So great to be able to see how cloud can help there. And there's also really other byproducts of cloud that are taken into consideration. It's we will see an evolution happen, but the key message behind all of this is that the infrastructure that's been put in place today, from an IP point of view, will be leveraged in this new environment as well. So if you're thinking about this being a big forklift for the operators, it's not, which is a great thing about what we're seeing here. So clearly, I think that we're going to continue to look at ways like this, and what I mentioned in the show as well is things such as machine to machine, mm-hmm. where instead of connecting and the operators are getting this physical locations and people, we're going to start seeing really the impact of machines to machines, and the fact that information sharing about the consumer and the identity of the consumer is going to be key as well, and that's going to be all something that the end user will benefit from. New services and the embracement of new services and all this will really come from the fact of what's the trust level going to be from the consumer. What we're seeing a lot of opportunities, I think you're right, it's going to take some time, but we're starting to see some early applications in metering, mm-hmm. and the efficiencies that brings, both from a cost point of view as well as the ability to allocate those resources similarly from a concept point of view when the consumer needs them most. But then also have a side benefit when it's not being utilized, to be able to either redirect it or apply it when, again, more heavier usage is required. So we're starting to see the economics of earlier applications like metering paying off. How that's going to develop in the different business models, I still think we're scratching the surface on, but definitely how we're starting off on the smart grid side as we see real benefits to the end consumer, as well as to basically the utility providers. I think the biggest thing here is to kind of look at the kind of device ecosystem that you absolutely just talked about. Think about everything we have in our home. The ability now for the service provider to look at that entire ecosystem and provide it more as a managed service, and is going to be truly, I think, unique. And it'll bring lots of other byproducts associated with too, because having two teenagers that like a lot of the gaming, just think about a lot of that capability coming maybe in something more generically into your home, but certainly the advanced capability being really served by the service provider cloud is something that I think is going to be highly impactful. So now you're starting to see our technology really getting into the places you just talked about, monitoring, energy management, all of those kinds of things. So basically we're looking at a smarter home. And that's really exciting. It drives new business models, new opportunities, and also I think with the sensitivity to green and being green today is another great byproduct of that.